if you can make a success of self-employment or setting up your small company, and you've got a pipeline or you've got a reserve, then you're zen, because you can think, well, I've got 6 months' money in the bank, or I've got 12 months' money in the bank. If you're not worried about how you're going to pay your rent or feed yourself,
you'll make good decisions.
You'll be able to think far more rationally.
Mia, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is the HoLT Survival Guide for Small Businesses. And one of the reasons that I've invited you on this podcast is because you've been running small businesses for 20 years.
I have. I'm an old timer in that
not
regard.
Not old, but it's very admirable. And it's not something that we've spoken to anybody who's been running a business for so long on this podcast yet. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay, right. The two businesses that I've got that have been going 20 years, one is financial services and deals very much on a client basis. And another one works in the technology sector, deals with artificial intelligence and exciting stuff like that. But that's more business to government or business to big company type offering that goes to, and does a lot of research and development and state of the art stuff and patents and all stuff like that. That's quite exciting.
And you've 20 years. So what was it that you were doing before you came to start your own businesses?
I've always been working in both these sectors since university.
Right.
So my degree is science-based, and that's where the technology side started. And my business partner, who's also my life partner in that business, we met at university, and we've been working in that sector since university.
I'm just baffled by your level of commitment, because that terrifies me. I've never committed to anything for that long. So it's incredible. Anything or anyone.
Things change. It's not, it's not the same as it sort of was back then. And I also, even while I was at university, I wanted part-time work. Yeah. And I mean, I was lucky when I went to university. There were still things called grants. Yeah. None of this loan stuff. It's a different animal now. But I needed part-time work and I started with a corporate in financial services, because that's what they were offering. And I was at university in London, so that sort of fitted in quite well. It's quite an expensive place to be, and that sort of thing. So that's how I got into both industries, and I've stayed, and I love both of them.
And they're quite different,
ways.
So it keeps your brain busy, and you're constantly challenged. And like you say, with technology, everything's constantly moving. So I think personally, one of the really interesting insights that you've got is just how businesses changed, and so many businesses fail. And I don't know the stats, but it's something like the first 2 to 5 years is so crucial for small businesses. What is it that you noticed that maybe you've done differently because you've stayed the course, that you notice lots of small businesses these days aren't maybe doing?
You've got to look at starting a business in two respects. There's the business, as in the work, and then there's running the business. And they're very, very different. They're different skills. Obviously, the business aspect of any business is whatever it is you're doing. So if you're a plumber, you've got to know about heating and plumbing and pipes and all the rest of it. Yeah. That's not the same as running the business and the marketing and everything else. So a lot of people, I think, have a skill in something, know about something, and think, well, I'll start a business.
And they don't give too much thought to all of the, and I'm guilty of that. I definitely didn't think about, and I certainly didn't allow time for business development and business growth and business innovation. When I started my first business, I was just like, oh, I'm good at typing, I'll do typing. But I spent so much time typing and, placing a few ads here and there, hoping to get some clients, that I didn't really think about anything else. And that's why it never really got anywhere until I started using LinkedIn and found customers and went, oh, there's all these other ideas, and I could do other things.
I can do this.
But I didn't leave the time or the energy to put into that. So I'd 100% agree. I think there's a lot of people out there that go, oh, well, I'm really good at this, I'll do this and make money. but they don't think about.
And you're not going to make money on day one, or very rarely are you going to make money on day one. So before you launch into a business, really you need some sort of backup plan to keep yourself going for 6 months or however long.
Is that what you did? Did you have like money in the bank as a just in case fund as you started your business?
Yeah, well, in the technology business, we had a contract on day one or day two or that sort of thing. So that was slightly different. But in financial services, the way financial services work is even if you get a client on day one, you know that it's going to probably be 3 months, 4 months before you get any revenue from that client coming through, just because of the nature of the work. You know, if I see somebody tomorrow, it's probably going to be for Christmas before there's payment on that. So you need to have some sort of cash reserve to keep you going until you can build up a pipeline. Once you've got the pipeline, in financial services, you probably get about a third of that pipeline dropping a month, between a quarter and a third. So it's great in terms of, I probably know what my income stream up till January is going to be, but I know that the work now is going to build into February's, etc. But you've got to get to that stage of actually building that pipeline. And, you know, if you let that pipeline drop off because you're ill or something like that, you've got to build it back up. So having a reserve.
And that's a classic mistake that I see a lot of small businesses making. So you'll see them, especially when we're on LinkedIn. And because obviously I spend a fair amount of time on LinkedIn, you'll see people that are going great guns for say 4 months. They're being really, really consistent, posting content. They're getting clients, and then they get busy because they've taken on all these new clients, and they get really, really busy for a few months, and they stop posting and they stop doing, and what it's not just obviously LinkedIn, but they stop marketing themselves because they're so busy with client work. And then a contract will end, or a client will lose a client, and then you lose them, and they're suddenly panicking, and they're like, oh my God, I've lost 3 clients this month. And it's not their fault, but they haven't got a pipeline because they've been too busy doing client work instead of marketing. You think, but people don't prioritize marketing like they do. We all take time to send our receipts to our accountant and sign our accounts off, and we're managing our emails, and we prioritize things like that, but then they don't think of marketing. And I see that mistake a lot, people panicking, and then because they haven't been consistent on their socials, their engagement has dropped, and then they're not getting the leads, and they go into panic mode. And then they start looking for jobs because they're convinced that they're never going to build it back up again, and everything's a disaster. And it's a shame that we see that, but clearly that's not something that you've had a problem with. What have you done in that 20 years? What have you done in your, I guess, more your financial services business, because that's probably more applicable to the majority of people we speak to. What have you done to ensure that you've continuously had a pipeline of customers?
Right. 2 very simple things. First of all, I limit the number of new clients each month.
Right, so you don't overwhelm yourself?
No.
Okay.
No. But secondly, clients that I do have, I know what is in the pipeline. So say, for example, you know, somebody took out or did a certain product 3 years ago, and I know that that's coming up for renewal or review or something like that. That'll be diarised in. So,
so you know, future planning constantly. Of
so I might take 10 new clients one month and 5 the next month.
Because
I know that 10 existing ones.
So you're very organised with the conversations that you must be having with the customers that you're working with, and knowing that they're going to be there in 6 months' time, and that you've built a really good relationship with them.
But it's also about touch points as well, isn't it? So it's yes, marketing is go out and get new clients, but it's also retaining your existing ones.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So you've got clients that you're forward planning, and you're saying, okay, well, this product's coming up for renewal in 6 months. Do you take steps at like 4 months to touch base with them, check out how they are? Do you send gifts? Do you meet up with them in like what do you do to nurture those relationships to keep them so
things like
long-lasting?
Newsletters.
Okay.
I don't do a sort of a whizzy newsletter like sort of you do, but sort of just general content that might be interesting.
Yeah.
that can go out quarterly via email, that sort of thing. So there's always sort of a touch point.
A reminder that you exist, even if they don't. I always say that to people, like, even if people don't open your newsletter, the fact that your name's appearing in their inbox is reminding them that you exist. It would be better, obviously, if they do open it and read it. We like those people best, but it is, like you say, the touch points. That's a really interesting, and it's not hard, is it? Let's be honest. Like, anyone could do a quarterly newsletter. It can be a big commitment to do one every week or even every month. So quarterly is manageable.
Because if you do things too often, you just press delete, don't you? If you, as a recipient,
on my weekly one,
as a recipient, of various things that the shops sell out.
I think
shops
if it's
do
things
it, don't
that
they?
you can immediately use. I get one from Katie Skelton, which is every day. And I'm like, the commitment to send one every day. But every single one has something useful in it. And I think, and it's fun to read. And I think that makes a big difference. But I'm assuming with financial services, maybe it's not a riveting read necessarily.
It's not a sort of a joke. There isn't a joke section. But
maybe you're missing something there.
But yes, a regular touch point, not overcommitting on the number of people that you're going to see in a month. Because as soon as you do that, if I suddenly next month thought, I'm going to see 40 new clients, yes, I could possibly get them. But
will you be able to give them all a quality service?
That's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And secondly, what's going to happen 3 months down the line? I'm going to end up with no new people coming in because all I've been doing is rushing around to trying to deal with those.
That's something I think the vast majority of small businesses are guilty of. And I definitely did this. When I pivoted into LinkedIn training, I 100% did this. I was like, oh my God, I can charge £99 for an hour of my time. I'll do 6 trainings a day. Oh my God, this is amazing. And then I was like, I am shattered. I can't do 6 hours of one-to-one trainings in a day. There's nothing left of me. I'm a shell of a human. And I had no energy for creating content or doing anything other than that training. And I went, oh, this is bad. And I very quickly started realizing that I was saying yes to clients I didn't want to work with, clients whose I didn't want to be in any way responsible for raising their voices, which was, part of what I was helping them to do. So you're not my kind of people. And I realized that I needed to put prices up and be more choosy. But I had to go through the pain of making that mistake to learn that and actually realize, and I think this is why we all have like imposter syndrome when we start our businesses and we think, if someone says yes to working with us, we just have to say, take all the clients, right? Because it's never going to last. This must be luck. I'm never going to keep this up. And then you start realizing, oh no, actually, I am going to keep getting clients. So I can say no to some clients, and that doesn't mean I'm not going to have more come through. Again, that's one of those things that you learn as you go, that you're not meant for every client. And some clients will do your head in, and you realize that you need to say no. And the more I said no, the more confident I became in saying no, because I trusted that more clients would still come. And in my head, I was going, no, if I say no to this client, I will never get another client. And it wasn't like that at all. And I imagine you must have gone through something similar at the very start that's made you go, this is the amount I can deal with well and serve well. And this is my ideal number to be onboarding or working with at a time.
It never particularly threw me, but I think that's the nature of the way that the pipeline payments drop.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to do, and if I'm wrong, then I'll correct it 3 months down the line.
Right.
If if the income dries up because I'm not getting the clients, then I'll try and do something different in 3 months. But if you've got a reserve, and then once you've built up the pipeline, really what's going to drop next month, the month after.
Well,
it gives you more breathing space.
That reserve then is a really, really good point, because I didn't have that when I first started with the LinkedIn training, because COVID had happened and my other business, the clients just dried up because they had no clients to serve, so they weren't making work for me. So I didn't have that 6 month lead up to build up a reserve and some savings to go, hey, I'm going to try this new thing. It was a very impulsive, well, people are asking me for it, I'm going to do it. And so I didn't have that reserve. And I think that's a really great point
possible,
to actually, it's not always possible. There's lots of people that, suddenly they lose their job and they're shoved into the world of self-employment because they're struggling in the job market. And there's not that option. But if you have that option to build up a reserve so you don't keep saying yes to clients that you don't really want, and you keep that space available for the kind of clients you're going to love working with, that will motivate you and light you up inside and make you go, oh, actually, I love what I'm doing and I want to do more of it, which that energy then attracts more of those good clients, right? It sounds woo-woo, but it really does. Like, I find the more positive, happy, passionate energy that I'm putting into what I do, I attract clients that love that I'm so enthusiastic and excited by working with them.
You've got to love what you do, or at least like it a lot, because otherwise
you're going to spend a lot of time doing it.
And it's going to show in what you're doing, show in your attitude, and then people aren't going to come to you. So you've got to.
So what is it that you do to market yourself, to keep your pipeline filled? Like, what avenues have you taken in terms of like marketing?
A lot of it's mostly it's referrals.
So that's come from building a really good reputation in your industry and with your existing clients, right? That's impressive, because I think that's, again, something that we probably don't talk about enough. Social media's all get your inbound leads, cold DMing, cold emailing. Everyone's telling you about that. But I don't actually see a lot of people talking about the power of the word of mouth referral, because my first business ran entirely on word of mouth referrals.
Leah, you do backdoor Barry.
Yes, well, yes.
So that's a referral, isn't it?
It is. For anyone that doesn't know, for the membership community that I run, there is a way in. If you're not someone in the community, you can ask someone that is in the community for backdoor Barry access, and he's kind of like our security guard that will personally invite people by referrals. Yeah, which we just laugh like children because we called him backdoor Barry and we are immature like that. But I do use it. I know how powerful it is, because my transcription business literally ran. I think I ran a few free Gumtree ads at the beginning, and then everything was word of mouth. And it kept me going for 8 or 9 years. And so I'm very aware of that. And I've been really lucky with LinkedIn training that I get a lot of referrals from companies and individuals that say, oh, you need Leah. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
But people don't talk about it as a structured or planned. It's kind of like, oh, it just happens. But there are ways that you can incentivize referrals with existing clients and maintaining good relationships with clients, so that it's your name they think of when their friend says, do you know anyone who does this? And you go, oh yeah, actually I do. And it's that, and that's why I use social media to stay front of mind, because that helps with getting referrals as well. They know that I'm Leah from LinkedIn. That's the name that I'm slowly moving away from it, but that is the name that I've been given, and it helps with the. So is there anything else that you do apart from, like, so you say word of mouth referrals, what else do you do to kind of nurture those relationships with those clients, or do you not do anything? You just are really bloody good at what you do?
Yes. Well, I'd like to think I'm really bloody good at what I do, but the referrals, repeat business from existing clients.
Yeah.
Because some clients don't need you that often, or it might be once every 5 years, but some literally every other month. It's something. So repeat business from existing ones, which if you've been going 20 years, you've got quite a few.
And their kids and
in
their
the pipeline.
Partners
I can't think of any client I've got actually that I would describe as a shrinking violet, to be fair.
I'm not surprised. I don't think you'd attract that kind. You're very to the point, aren't you?
Yeah, so I think that probably helps.
Excuse me for briefly interrupting our guest, but I need to tell you about my business baby, the HoLT. I started the HoLT in June 2022 to create a supportive place where small business owners, solopreneurs, freelancers and side hustlers could learn essential business skills at an affordable price, while coming together to network and support each other and our businesses. Every month, members get live Q&As and problem solving on tech, sales and marketing, plus 4 or more masterclasses on skills such as copywriting, finances, sales, social media, branding, mindset, confidence, resilience, graphic design, automation, AI, and so much more. We also host weekly community calls to meet fellow members, content creation hours and monthly wellbeing circles, and in everything we do, we encourage collaboration, regular communication, and most essentially, mutual respect and kindness. The HoLT is where the square pegs of the business world fit perfectly. So if you've never felt like you quite belong in business, we're the community for you. Visit the-holt.com for more information and to get on the waiting list now. We're opening again soon and we'd love for you to join us. Now, back to our guest.
People do ask, I think naturally in anything, if you see a pair of shoes, you're like, oh, where'd you get those from? Or, yeah. And it's the same thing, oh, that's nice, that's a piece of it. Or where did you buy that from? Where did you do that? Who did that from you? How do you get your sort of VA needs met? Or, people will ask for referrals.
And people are very willing, I find people are very willing to volunteer information as well, because that is stuff that happens in the HoLT all the time. Someone says, oh, I'm struggling doing this, and someone else jumps in and says, well, I can do that, or you need to speak to this person that does it. And I do it a lot. If I get a client that says to me, oh, I need this, this and this, I'm like, well, this person, they won't do you wrong. Like, this is who I use, or I've worked with them myself. And it's you capitalise off the trust that person's built with the brand.
But it also means you can ask a question as well, because one of the issues I have over things like testimonials is very often it's like, that person was great or that person was really nice, and it doesn't necessarily tell you what you need to. This is a good example. If I was looking to buy something from John Lewis and I looked at a review or something, they often write something like,
the staff are very helpful.
Or lovely kettle, it looks great in my kitchen.
Yeah, but does it boil the water efficiently? How long is it going to last?
Just because it's your kettle in your kitchen, fine, very happy for you, but it doesn't mean it's going to be nice in mine. And if you bought it 2 years ago, if they bought this kettle 2 years ago, still working well, use it 4 times a day, more at weekends, I'd think that's a great kettle. So often when you look at testimonial,
they're not talking about results.
They're not talking about results.
Yeah.
It's more of a touchy-feely emotional thing, which doesn't necessarily
help. And that's not the kind of person that you are you? You're not a touchy-feely kind of person.
Not in that.
And I think, as a small business owner, I'm really lucky that I've got a lot of really positive testimonials from people. And it's one of the things that I try, if I'm asking for a testimonial from someone, I will give them 4 prompts and say, it would be really helpful to me if you could talk about this, and this, because I know I'm going to use it in my marketing. And if I'm able to use it in my marketing effectively,
you're guiding them,
that person's going to also get visibility for them and their business. So it's good testimonials are super important, whether they're written, whether they're coming from the right person. And it's not just, I had a nice time with them. It's much more like, working with them has changed my business, and here is how. I have made this much money, I have saved this much time, I have been able to get home in time for the kids' stories and bath time. Like, we want tangible outcomes that you've received from these people. I think that's an interesting one, because they are really good for marketing, testimonials. And so do you include those in your newsletters with other people? No. You're just, it's impressive how you're very laid back about your business model, and you just seem to have found your groove with it, and you're just very easygoing and confident. I think it comes across that way.
I think it depends very much on what sort of business you're in, Leah, because different things are going to work in different ways. You see, a lot of people with business, they think, who's my competition? Who's my competition? Who am I competing against? Well, actually, I think most people's competition is actually to do nothing. Because if I was looking for a LinkedIn trainer, right?
There's plenty of them.
I could look for a LinkedIn trainer, or I could think, I'm all right, I won't bother. And the actual inertia or getting over the inertia to get the training or to do something is actually the biggest issue. If somebody's proactively looking for something, then fair enough, they're going to look for a LinkedIn trainer. But somebody might be on LinkedIn not getting the results that they want and just think, well, it doesn't really work. And to say well, look, I do LinkedIn training. This is what you need. These are the results. You've got to get over that point of, well, I'll do nothing. And I think that's a lot of people don't quite get that the biggest obstacle to them getting a client is that client always has the option to do nothing, to not buy a service. It's not necessarily that there are 6 other trainers or podcast directors or that sort of thing. It's the fact, shall I be bothered to do a podcast? Is it going to work? I won't bother to do it. And that's the default state. Now, in financial services, it's less of an issue because people have a house, people have a mortgage.
It's something that everybody needs.
They're going to do something. They might not do it with you, they might do it with somebody, but they're going to do something. And with other businesses, there is an option to do nothing. Yeah. Whereas you've got to live somewhere.
Yeah, my mortgage is going to come up for renewal in 2 years' time. I am going to have to take action on it. So now my only choice is, who am I going to do that action with?
How am I going to deal with that?
And the thing is, and the same goes for like lawyers, right? If you have a legal problem, the first person you ask, do you know, is your closest friends and your family. Do you know a good lawyer that does divorce? Do you know a good mortgage broker? First thing I did when I chose my mortgage broker was I asked my friend who did his mortgage, and it happened to be somebody that I knew on LinkedIn and who was in the area that I was going to. And that was an easy decision for me. And thank God, because they were an absolute dream. Shout out Sam, who got me my dream house. But I trusted somebody that I already knew and asked for a word of mouth.
But you were going to buy that house.
Or
you were going to buy a house.
Yeah.
Whereas
the decision to buy the house had already been made. It was just, who's going to help me to get it?
Because you've got to live somewhere.
Yeah.
Whereas with other businesses,
you can choose. Like coaches, people can just choose to manage on their own.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't need a leadership coach. I don't need this coach. I don't need a what have you. Yeah. So it's the biggest obstacle, I think, is the doing nothing for a lot of people.
I mean, it's luxury, isn't it? Like a coach is a luxury. Yes, we all can benefit from mentoring, coaching, LinkedIn training and having a copywriter to do things for us. We can all benefit, but it is a luxury. It's not a necessity. If you're buying a house, a mortgage is a necessity. Unless you won
the lottery or you've got cash. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I really get that. Really get your point on that one. What is it that you see as someone you are a seasoned pro in this now, and you, like I say, you do seem really chilled about it, just runs like clockwork. You've got it nailed, and it's really seems to have fed a lifestyle that you're very comfortable in. Like, I'm not saying you don't work hard, but you never seem to be somebody who is overwhelmingly stressed. You seem to have built a business that serves the life that you want to have and that you enjoy, which is the point all of us want to get to, right? I'm not in it to be a multi-millionaire. I don't want to tycoon.
Doesn't help anybody, does it?
It doesn't. And is it just the way you set up your business? Is it because you don't have employees? Is it like, how have you got to that point where
I think if
you are so zen? You come across zen.
If you when you work for somebody, then the things that there's stress in that. You lose some of the stress because you're not worried about where your next client is or how you're going to get paid. But I've had jobs where I've had to make people redundant. And I know that people who are sitting in employed positions might not be employed in 2 months' time. Yeah. And they probably don't realise that, or they don't see the writing on the wall, or they don't quite get the vibes that the company's in trouble, or there's going to be a restructure or something of that order. So if you can make a success of self-employment or setting up your small company, and you've got a pipeline or you've got a reserve, then you're zen, because you can think, well, I've got 6 months' money in the bank, or I've got 12 months' money in the bank. And somebody who is in an employed position, they might think that they're fine because it's great and they're working for a fab company, but they don't know that company's not going to relocate to Wales and they're in wherever.
And that's it, isn't it? And you will be, I remember watching, I I think I saw it on Instagram, some sort of a meme, and it said, you're working, something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, but you're working your arse off for a company that if you died tomorrow, they'd have you replaced the following day. And I was like, oh, that's so true though, isn't it? Like, and it happened.
Well,
one of my friends lost her colleague. Her colleague was very sadly passed away, and it was very sudden. And 2 weeks later, there was someone sat in her seat, and they'd filled the position. And I was like, oh. But it's the reality as a company. That's obviously what you have to do. There's no shame in them doing that. No, but it makes you realise that you are everybody in employment is so replaceable, and that's painful to realise that you are. And I hated it. I never wanted to work for a big corporate because I hated the idea of me being a small cog in a massive wheel or a massive machine. I didn't want to be insignificant. And yet, so I worked with small companies, and I loved working with small companies, and I felt like I was part of a team, and we were building something, and I was helping. And now I'm building something, and I don't have employees. Very similar to your model, I've chosen to work with, I outsource to amazing freelancers who are my team, and they help me grow my business. I help them grow their business, and I love that I'm doing it that way. But do you think that not having employees for your business has helped you to maintain this more calm structure?
Having an employee, there's pros and cons, isn't there? But one of the definite cons is you've got to keep them occupied for 40 hours or however many hours a week, and if the work is drying up, you've still got to pay that person their contracted pay, haven't you? So that's a worry, isn't it, for any small business? But yes, you get all the other HR aspects of dealing with people on top of just the work, and that can be fine, but it can be a headache. I think the other thing that sort of helps with the stress is that when you are working for yourself, you in charge of your own diary. So tomorrow you could, well, not necessarily tomorrow because you're probably full, but you could suddenly say, I'm going shopping, or you could do this, or you can ask me to come on this podcast and I can say, yes, I can do that date. And I don't have to go and ask anybody and say, can I have that time off, or I'm going to take it as holiday, I'm going to do, there's none of that sort of stuff, because that's quite stressful.
That took me a while to realise, because with the typing business, I was working really, really long hours, and then it was all around like when my son was at daycare and things like that. When I switched and I was filling up all of the hours he was still at school, or it was during the pandemic at first, so I was still like, anytime he was napping or distracted by CBeebies or something, I was like, right, I can get some work done now. And I was working every hour I possibly could, and it took me a while to get to the point, and I think actually only over the last 6 months or so that I've realised, with the HoLT having this recurring income now as a membership community, I know that I've got X amount of money every single month, and I can go, well, actually, I don't need to take on extra LinkedIn training, and I don't need to book corporate jobs and speaking events.
You can choose to.
And I can run the HoLT. I can be there in the evenings. As long as I'm doing the masterclass hosting and I'm still communicating with the community and posting on the socials, I can go in there at 9 p.m. at night from my phone if I want to. And it's massively reduced my stress, that I can go on holiday to Mexico for 10 days with my son and actually go, I don't feel like my business is going to burn to the ground because I'm not there for 10 days.
I haven't had to turn down this, or...
I don't feel terrible because I haven't posted on LinkedIn for a
week.
That
reduces stress.
Massively.
So it's that...
But it doesn't happen immediately for people.
It doesn't happen immediately. And you sort of realise the benefit. Because the other thing that's happened to me, because I've been going for 20 years, is you've got technology coming in now that just wasn't there 20 years ago.
I'm still a bit behind on all of that because my brain for technology is not there. But
even just things like, you can put a calendar on or send that to clients so that they can book their own appointments.
I can do that. I can manage that.
All that sort of thing. I mean, that wasn't there 20 years ago.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine having to go around with a paper diary. I would absolutely lose it.
So there's just lots of things now that make life a lot easier, reduce, which just weren't there.
I rely on my Alexa. I've got an Alexa in every room at home. And the reason I have it is because it's synced to my Google Calendar. And 10 minutes before every appointment, my Alexas shout out my appointment. And it does my son's head in. But I will forget the amount of times it's said to me, you've got a Zoom call in 10 minutes. And I'm like, I didn't realise I had one. Quickly throw some clothes on, grab a coffee, go to the toilet, sit down, because I've completely forgotten about it. So I'm absolutely terrible. So Mia, 20 years in business is spectacular, and that you're running both your businesses and it's serving your lifestyle. And I think you are literally setting the standard that I want to get to. And I feel like I'm actually not far away from feeling quite chilled. I'm very still excited and passionate about moving the businesses forward, but I am starting to get to that point now. And I think I'm nearly year 5 of running the businesses, year 4 of running the businesses, second year of the HoLT. But I think that combined experience is getting me to that point where I'm ready to start going, actually, I don't have to have my foot on the pedal all of the time, and I can go at my own pace and not be led by everybody else going, oh, you can do this, you can do that, you can go faster, oh my God, this is amazing. Because everything went so fast to start with for me, and I'm like, I felt,
you do whole cupcakes, you can do
I felt in such a rush.
Limit to,
and it's an age thing as well. I was like, all these people are achieving this much by 40, and I'm like, who cares? I'm on my own timeline now. I don't have to follow other people's
But I
pace.
also have to question, are they? I mean, you see people on LinkedIn, you earn £10,000 doing this, and you just think,
started that rush at the beginning, because it's infected everybody, right?
And you just think, no.
It is okay to stop
I see
and enjoy what you've built.
And accounts of people and think, nah, that's...
Yeah, what you say online isn't quite what you...
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't stack.
Yeah, well, I'm well aware, because I've got members of my team that work with entrepreneurs that are very visible on LinkedIn who claim to be making 6 and 7 figures. They can't even afford to pay their VA's full bill, and they're got payment plans for their invoices to their VAs that they haven't paid anything.
So something doesn't quite marry up.
Yeah, there's a lot of that about, but I definitely feel like there is an expectation of people, especially on social media, to do everything super, super quick. And actually, you are a really shining example of someone who has stayed the course, made your own pace, chosen how you want to, or if you want to grow to suit your lifestyle. And you seem very relaxed in it. And I really admire that. So to sum up, is there one piece of advice? And think about let's talk about a 30-year-old entrepreneur, and they're maybe 6 months into running a side hustle, and they're thinking about getting ready to jump ship and go all in on this thing that they're passionate about. What would you say to them that they would be able to take forward to really internalize and help them to make what they're going to do a success?
I think if you have the ability to get a reserve in some way, shape or form, do so. And that might be, you don't go on holiday. Think of it as if you're saving for a deposit for a house.
Yeah.
It's that sort of mindset of, you don't go on holiday, you make this sacrifice.
Take the pressure off.
But because that will, if you're not worried about how you're going to pay your rent or feed yourself,
you'll make good decisions.
You'll be able to think far more rationally. Try and park emotion, and that doesn't mean don't get passionate about something. No. It's people tend to take things so personally in business. That client is cancelled because they don't like me. Well, perhaps they weren't suited to you. Learn from it. What was it that they've said
differently, or what? And
perhaps they're not recognising your boundaries. Perhaps they're not doing. What could you do to perhaps improve it? But I think your skill and your business, know that, but then make sure that you're consistent in what you do to run your business and to get the professionals on board that you need to, and to take the help that is out there. And
ask for help as well.
To ask for help, and to Google is probably your best friend in life, I find generally, but it's there's a lot of government support out there that people don't maximise.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the government will give you so many £1,000, not necessarily that support, but things that you can get this sort of meet the expert program that they do, and there are things like IP lawyers, there are marketing experts, there's all that stuff where you get
Barclays have an amazing we went to a co-working space, they have an amazing incentive, Barclays Eagle Labs, and it's free for entrepreneurs of any age and anywhere in the country, and they have places that they can go for co-working for free, and a massive mentorship program that have VCs and very successful people offering free mentoring to newer business owners. And I don't think there's enough advertising around what's available or people don't know where to look. And that's definitely worth, like, for everybody.
But that's where Google really helped, because it will, I mean, Google did Google Garage. I don't think they still do, but they had set up, I mean, it was before COVID, but they had setups where Google paid for support on how to use, well, they did a whole thing about digital marketing, so it was sort of SEO and all the sorts of stuff, plus they had in-house experts, so they'd go to an area, came to Newcastle, came to Sunderland, and they were in Newcastle Library for about 3 months, I think. So they used the downstairs space, which was probably given by the council, I don't know, but they paid for local people who knew about SEO and digital marketers to work there, so you could go and book a slot. But they did training courses, they do online courses. There was a whole program that Google did, and that there is quite a lot of support out there that businesses should be taking advantage. I mean, even HMRC, as much as we don't, necessarily like the taxman, they do have all their processes. There's online webinars. And some of them are live, some of them are pre-recorded, so you can find out about stuff. And it is out there. And I would encourage anybody who's thinking about setting up a business to actually look at the free stuff, not just go and get a business coach. I'm not saying business coaches are bad, but there's a lot
there
you can
are big
do.
financial commitments.
You're paying
so
out
early on, though,
where there's a lot of free stuff available that will certainly help you very well in the early years.
Yeah, I think you need to be, personally, in my experience, hiring a business coach straight off the bat would be too early. You need to know a bit about you and your business after it's been going a while before you can select the right kind of business coach for you, for what you need, because they all are going to be very, very different.
I think the other top tip, Leah, is look at who your competitors are, or who in the industries, similar size company or similar size business to you, and what you're looking to do, and see what they are offering. Don't reinvent the wheel. See what they're doing, because they might have spent hours designing some sort of service. I don't mean just copy them.
No.
I mean, if what they're doing seems to be quite successful and they're doing it a certain way, that gives you probably 2 or 3 rungs up the ladder.
Yeah, it's precedent, isn't it? Like this is something that I want to do, and it works. There is a market for it, so I can do it as well as them. Make sure you're doing it as well as them. But we're not advocating copying. But if you can see someone who does what you want to do and does it to a similar scale, and that it's successful, it's possible.
How are they going about doing it? They're relying a lot on technology to do that. Well, okay, perhaps I need to. What else is out there?
And if there's questions, ask. That's something that I think would surprise most people. And I've always been very open about it. If people say to me, how have you done this? I will either charge them some money for some consultancy and literally tell them everything. And if they want to use what I did, that's fine. And I literally do that for my community. Or I'm talking about it openly in the content that I put out and the conversations, the podcasts that I do, and I will share what I know, because actually so many business owners, we assume everyone's going to be cagey with how they've done that. They don't want other people to do it the same. But actually, if you're honest with them and say, hey, I'm starting something like this, I'd love to have a conversation. I'm happy to pay for your time, but I'd like to know the mistakes that you've made so I can avoid them, or I'd like to understand more about the model and how it works. And it will surprise you, and the worst they can say is no. And you've probably got
you can't train everybody in the country, can you?
No, exactly.
You can't,
and you're helping make your whole industry better if you're making sure that people that are coming through are delivering quality service as well.
Yeah.
Mia, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure to get to have a really good chat with you.
And Bronson, who's incredibly well behaved.
Hasn't he? He's literally a model dog. I think you need to do coaching sessions on how to be a good boy.
Talk about Zen.
Thank you so much, Mia.
Thank you.
Before you go, I just need to tell you about our brilliant podcast sponsor that aligns so well with our own mission at the HoLT. While seasoned podcaster Wendy C was consoling a friend about a toxic workplace experience, she realised that workplace abuse is so widespread, and yet so many people are suffering in silence, often alone. Safe Space from the Workplace is a new podcast for everyone. If you find yourself in a toxic workplace, you're a leader or business owner feeling out of your depth, or you have a friend or family member struggling at work, this podcast is for you. Wendy will be talking about everything workplace related, including survivor stories and speaking to experts specialising in tools to cope with burnout, discrimination, redundancy, grievances, medical issues, women's health, and so much more. The podcast aims to empower employees and educate leaders and business owners, and help people who find themselves in toxic workplaces to realise that they're not alone. Subscribe to the Safe Space from the Workplace podcast on the links below. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.